Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 6:03 on Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. This virtual public hearing is now open. My name is Michael Kirshner. I am an environmental engineer for the North Carolina Division of Air Quality's Asheville Regional Office. I have been appointed to be the hearing officer for this public hearing by the director of the division, Mike Abrazinskis. My purpose this evening is to receive your comments, either written or oral, for consideration in the issuance of a new air quality permit to Carolina Sunrock, LLC, Prospect Hill Quarry and Distribution Center for the construction and operation of rock quarry operations, a drum mix asphalt plant, and a truck mix concrete batch plant. The proposed location is 1238 Wren Road, Prospect Hill in Caswell County, North Carolina. The focus of this hearing, and the only focus, is to receive public comments on the proposed air quality permit as they relate to the applicability of air quality regulations. The Division of Air Quality is conducting this public hearing digitally to allow for public participation while protecting public health under current guidance to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The public hearing announcement was published in the Burlington Times News on August 9th, 2021, and the Caswell Messenger on August 11th, 2021, and it was also posted on the Division of Air Quality's website, August 9th, 2021. During this virtual public hearing, we will be receiving oral comments from those individuals who have pre-registered to speak at this event. If you have technical difficulties with WebEx, you can use the chat feature within WebEx to ask questions or seek assistance. You can also visit the Division of Air Quality's website using the link in the public notice for this hearing for instructions on the various ways to connect to WebEx. Joining me for this hearing tonight by WebEx are the director of the Division of Air Quality, Mike Abrazinskis, the Deputy Director of the Division of Air Quality, Michael Pajetra, Rahat Ashik, an environmental engineer with the DAQ Rules Development Branch, and Zainab Nassif, the Division of Air Quality's Public Information Officer. In addition, from the Winston-Salem Regional Office, we have Ray Stewart, the Regional Supervisor, Davis Murphy, the Compliance Supervisor, and Dylan Wright, the permit engineer who drafted the draft air quality permit and did the draft air permit review. I want to thank everyone involved getting this public hearing scheduled and organized, with special thanks to Rahat Ashik and Zainab Nassif for their expertise in setting up this WebEx event. There may be dignitaries and elected officials present at this virtual public hearing, and we thank you for your interest and attendance. The Division of Air Quality Regulations do not require a hearing or comment period for the issuance of this air permit. However, due to significant public interest, the director of the Division of Air Quality decided to open a comment period and conduct this public hearing to receive pertinent public comments on whether to allow or deny issuance of this draft air permit to Carolina Sunrock, LLC, Prospect Hill Quarry and Distribution Center. The comment period for this permit opened August 9th, 2021, and will close September 23rd, 2021 at 5 p.m. The required duration for a comment period is 30 days per the North Carolina rules. In addition to your oral comments tonight, the division is also accepting comments via regular postal mail and electronic mail. The email address is displayed on your screen. Copies of the permit application, the draft air permit application review, the draft air permit, and other information concerning the Sunrock LLC application are available to the public at the following locations: the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Winston-Salem Regional Office at 450 West Haynes Mill Road, Suite 300 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and also at the Division of Air Quality Central Office located at 217 West Jones Street in Raleigh, North Carolina. If you haven't done so and wish to review these materials in person, they are available to you during normal business hours at the locations just mentioned. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, an appointment is currently required. Please call in advance to make an appointment. A copy of the draft air permit and draft air permit application review are also available on the Division of Air Quality's website at www.ncair.org. The order of events for this hearing are as follows. First, Dylan Wright, who reviewed the permit application and wrote the draft air permit, will discuss the application, the draft air quality permit, and the air permitting procedures. This will be followed by the public comment period. We will receive oral comments from those individuals who have pre-registered to speak at this event. This will allow us to have an accurate hearing record. Only those who have pre-registered to speak will be called upon. To provide enough time for public comments, this meeting will be conducted in the following manner. All efforts will be made to call speakers in the same order of your pre-registration. Oral statements will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes in order to hear as many citizens as possible. The public hearing is scheduled to adjourn no later than 9 p.m. this evening. We will call the names of each of the pre-registered speakers in the order that they were registered, and our WebEx host will unmute the speaker when it is their turn to speak. We will also announce the name of the next speaker in the queue so that they can prepare to provide their comments. Please do not start speaking until the WebEx host has indicated that you are able to unmute your microphone. Your time will begin when you have unmuted your microphone. We will keep track of your time and will announce when your 3 minutes have expired. Please respect the time of all who wish to present oral comments tonight by adhering to the time limits and closing your remarks as quickly as possible once your time has elapsed. Cross-examination of the person presenting comments or of me, the hearing officer, is not allowed during this public hearing. However, as the hearing officer, I may ask questions of the presenter for clarification. Questions directed to the Division of Air Quality staff members will not be answered during this hearing. If you have questions for DAQ staff, we can provide you with our contact information, and you can always contact them after the meeting during normal business hours. After receiving comments this evening, the hearing record will be closed. However, the period for submitting comments does not close until Thursday, September 23rd at 5 p.m. Again, the only focus of this virtual public hearing is the presentation of comments related to air quality issues associated with the draft air quality permit for the Carolina Sunrock LLC Prospect Hill Quarry and Distribution Center facility and the applicability of air quality regulations. Only relevant air quality comments can be considered in my final recommendations to the division director. I will now call on Dylan Wright to discuss the air permitting procedures and permit application review.
Good evening. As Michael said, my name is Dylan Wright, Environmental Engineer 2 of the North Carolina Division of Air Quality's Winston-Salem Regional Office. I would like to discuss and provide an overview of the Carolina Sunrock Prospect Hill Quarry and Distribution Center application. On April 22nd, 2021, our office received an application for a new permit from Carolina Sunrock LLC for construction and operation of a drum mix, hot mix asphalt plant, a truck mix concrete batch plant, and rock quarry. Natural gas or propane and diesel fired engines and generators would provide power for the equipment at the site. The plant is proposed to be located at 1238 Wren Road in Prospect Hill. The application included the appropriate forms, supporting documents, and appropriate application fee. The facility was required to demonstrate compliance with DAQ's rule for areas without zoning by posting a sign on the property and publishing a legal notice in a local newspaper. The sign was posted on April 1st, 2021, and the legal notice was posted in the Caswell Messenger on April 7th, 2021. The application was considered complete for processing on April 22nd, 2021. According to the application, the 250 ton per hour drum mix hot mix asphalt plant will consist of the following equipment: one drum dryer mixer controlled by a cyclone in series with a bag filter, firing either propane, natural gas, number 2, recycled number 2, or recycled number 4 fuel oil, with an 80 million BTU per hour maximum heat input burner. 5 hot mix asphalt storage silos with capacities ranging from 150 to 200 tons each. 5 truck loadouts, 2 natural gas, number 2 fuel oil fired liquid asphalt cement heaters with 1.1 and 1.2 million BTU per hour maximum heat inputs each, and associated fuel oil, diesel, and liquid asphalt cement storage tanks. The application also lists a recycled asphalt pavement known as RAP crushing system. This system consists of a RAP crusher, a bin and feeder, 6 conveyors, and 1 double deck screen. Additionally, the application includes a 120 cubic yards per hour truck mix concrete batch plant consisting of 1 cement storage silo with a 200 ton capacity, 1 fly ash storage silo with a 150 ton capacity, a truck loadout, 1 cement fly ash weigh batcher with a 5 ton maximum capacity, and 1 aggregate weigh batcher with a 20 ton maximum capacity. All of the equipment at the concrete batch plant, with the exception of the aggregate weigh batcher, is to be controlled by a bag filter. The proposed rock quarry is listed on the application as consisting of crushing, conveying, and screening operations. The application specifies that electrical power will be provided by 3 natural gas/propane fired generators with ratings rated from 1,721 to 2,065 horsepower. Emissions from the natural gas propane fired generators are to be controlled by catalytic oxidizers. Mechanical power for quarry equipment will be provided by 7 diesel-fired engines and with ratings rated between 125 and 450 horsepower. All sources will appear on the permitted source list or on the insignificant or exempt activities list attached to the permit. As part of DAQ's technical review, the sources and control devices associated with the asphalt plant, RAP crushing system, concrete batch plants, quarry equipment, haul roads, and power generators were evaluated. This involved a discussion of all applicable state and federal air quality rules and regulations. The emission sources will be subject to a variety of state and federal rules. To avoid the applicability of the federal Title V permitting program, and for complying with the state's air toxic program, the facility requested an annual production limit of 600,000 tons of asphalt while not combusting fuel with more than 0.5% sulfur by weight. Additionally, the sulfur content of the number 2 fuel oil combusted in the asphalt cement heaters will be limited to 15 parts per million sulfur by weight. The facility also requested an annual throughput limit of 5,694,000 tons of crushed stone from the quarry equipment and to restrict the total fuel consumption of the natural gas propane fired generators and the smaller diesel generators associated with the quarry equipment to 119,697 million BTU per year of natural gas and 569,746 gallons of number 2 fuel oil per year, respectively. The application was evaluated for compliance with state and federal air emission standards for particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, volatile organic compounds, hazardous and toxic air pollutants. The facility will also be subject to state and federal visual emission standards. fugitive dust control requirements for non-processed sources, and a prevention of objectionable odors requirement. The permit will require the facility to conduct stack testing to demonstrate compliance with state and federal visual and particulate matter emission standards. Additional testing may also be required for carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and volatile organic compounds. The permit will have a specific condition regarding compliance with any lawfully adopted local zoning ordinances. Record keeping and reporting of the asphalt plant monthly production, quarry monthly production, generator fuel usage, and facility-wide sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and carbon monoxide emissions will be required by the permit. As mentioned, the facility is subject to the state's air toxic regulation. Air toxic emissions were evaluated based on the facility's maximum hourly and annual capacities. The applicant performed dispersion modeling analysis on a facility-wide basis and submitted to DAQ for review. Meteorologists with the DAQ Air Quality Analysis Branch reviewed the analysis and found that the modeling analysis demonstrated compliance with acceptable ambient levels on a source-by-source basis for all modeled toxic air pollutants. This facility submitted a statewide and National Ambient Air Quality Standards, also known as NAAQS, dispersion modeling analysis that was received March 2nd, 2021, and was revised March 10th and 17th, 2021. The modeling analysis was reviewed and approved by the DAQ Air Quality Analysis Branch on March 23rd, 2021. This facility will be required to operate the modeled sources in a manner in which they were modeled. This includes placement of the emission sources, configuration of the emission points, and operation of the emission sources. This model was conducted with a limited controlled potential emissions with the operation restrictions that I previously mentioned. I would like to thank you for your presence and attention this evening. If you have any specific questions regarding the facility's air quality permit, the permit review, or the application, I'm available by telephone or email to address your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. At this time, we will hear from those who have pre-registered to provide oral comments this evening. When your name is called, our WebEx host will enable you to unmute your microphone so that you can provide your comments. To ensure that our records are complete, please clearly state your name and who you are representing. Your comments will be recorded, so please speak loudly and clearly toward your microphone or telephone. Please do not start speaking until you have unmuted your microphone. It is very important for the audio clarity of your comments that you turn off any speakers that you have that could create feedback. If there is significant feedback on your line, we may need to mute your call and attempt to come back to you later. If we call your name but cannot hear you, please check to see if you are muted on the WebEx screen on your computer. If you are having audio issues, please try a different method of audio connection within WebEx or use the Call Me feature to have WebEx call your personal telephone. If we still cannot hear you, we will proceed to the next registered speaker, but we'll call your name again at the end of the hearing. I will do my best to pronounce your names correctly, and I will go ahead and apologize in advance for any errors. And we will now begin taking oral comments. And first of the pre-registered is Pat Warren, followed by Crystal Cavalier.
Hey, Pat, your line has been unmuted, so please go ahead and make your comments.
Thank you. My name is Pat Warren. I live in Prospect Hill, and I represent myself. According to the draft Environmental Justice Report, Carolina Sunrock, LLC, Prospect Hill Quarry and Distribution Center, written by the NC Department of Environmental Quality and dated August 9th, 2021, quote, "Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies." This came from the US EPA. The report examines Caswell County in a multitude of specific conditions in the categories of race and ethnicity, age groups and sex, disability, household income, per capita income, as well as poverty. The great majority of conditions examined indicate concerning disparities when compared to the state. The report goes on to recognize that, quote, Caswell County is designated as a Tier 1 county by the NC Department of Commerce. Tier 1 counties encompass the 40 most distressed counties based on average unemployment rate, median household income, percentage growth in population, and adjusted property tax per capita. Environmental justice is not served when the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies can be usurped by an entity that has the financial means to do so by causing fear of reprisal and enormous financial hardships on an already impoverished community, with the possible effect of rendering it mute. This can have profound effects well beyond the 1 mile radius and the census tracts upon which this report centers. I ask you to consider these facts and deny the air permit application from Carolina Sunrock. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Next up, we have Crystal Cavalier, followed by Galen Barema.
Crystal, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line. Thank you. Crystal, if you've dialed in by telephone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on.
Okay, moving on. Next up is Galen Barema, followed by Mark Barker.
Galen, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Galen Barema, Executive Vice President and General Counsel of Sunrock. Sunrock is dedicated to building and operating the proposed facilities in strict compliance with all laws. It's easy to frighten people with doomsday predictions, but I urge those of you who have not already made up your minds to listen to the experts and look at the data. These kinds of facilities have been the subject of years of vigorous scrutiny by the EPA and the DEQ, who have evaluated all the accusations you have heard about their ill effects and have looked beyond the accusations to the data and the facts. We believe the laws and regulations under which these facilities will operate and Sunrock's historical policies and practices offer ample protection to the environment and to the citizens of Caswell County. These facilities will bring good, needed jobs and important sources for transportation and construction materials, which need to be close to the sites where they will be used. I also want to clarify one part of the record. As you may be aware, this is the second time Sunrock has applied for an air permit for this site. Sunrock disputed the denial of the first permit. That case was never decided by a court. Instead, Sunrock voluntarily agreed to resubmit the application, supplemented with additional modeling data far beyond which is typically required for these kinds of facilities. This is one of the most closely scrutinized sites in the state, and the information and modeling data provided by Sunrock clearly established that these facilities comply with all regulatory requirements and pose no threat to the community, as Sunrock has always contended. Sunrock looks forward to receiving the air permit for this site in a timely manner, as it has been under review and subject to public comment for over 2 years at this point. And Sunrock looks forward to doing business in a safe and compliant manner in Caswell County for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barema. Next up, we have Mark Barker, followed by Daisha Williams. Mr.
Mark,
Barker.
your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Mark Barker. I'm on staff with the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League. I am submitting comments this evening on behalf of Brettel and our members in Caswell County and North Carolina. Revised air modeling analysis, including cumulative impacts from the nearby already permitted Wren Road Carolina Sunrock facility, must be completed. Until the cumulative impacts are considered, this permit must be denied. This already permitted facility is just over 3 miles from the proposed Prospect Hill Quarry and Distribution Center. The air modeling failed to analyze the cumulative impacts from both of these Carolina Sunrock facilities. In Richmond County, DAQ did include a nearby facility in Viva in its air modeling for the International Tie Disposal Facility. The ITD permit, just like this Carolina Sunrock draft permit, is a synthetic minor PSD avoidance permit. The previous air modeling indicated that the background concentration for NO2 is about 60 micrograms per cubic meter. Now, a few months later, DAQ is stating that the background concentration for NO2 is just 15.3 micrograms per cubic meter. The closest monitor for NO2 should be used. In the permit, condition A11B1 and 2 limitations are unclear with regards to the reference statute. Clarification is needed. Condition A13B1 should be excluded from the permit as it applies to facilities commenced prior to April 2008. Scheduling the public hearings and comment periods for both Carolina Sunrock facilities on adjacent days may restrict some public participation. Brett will request an extension of the public comment period to allow impacted residents more time to review documents for both proposed sites. And I want to add tonight, I want to point out that DAQ treated these two public hearings differently for oral comments. Last night's Burlington North facility hearing was restricted to 2 minutes. Tonight, you're allowing 3 minutes. The Burlington North facility will significantly impact an environmental justice community. Thus, I must question DAQ's compliance with Title VI civil rights. DAQ must do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Next up is Daisha Williams, followed by Sherry Bowers.
Daisha, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you. Daisha, if you've dialed in by telephone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you. Okay, we'll have to move on.
Okay, next to speak is Sherry Bowers, followed by T. Bowers.
Sherry, I believe your audio is not connected. If you would, please reconnect your audio. We'll have to move on.
So we'll come back to them. We'll come back to Ms. Bowers at the end, at least. Next up is T. Bowers, followed by Robert Bowers. We may have the same audio problem there.
So, Tia Bowers, if you've dialed in by phone, Tia, I've identified your line. I've unmuted you. Please make your comment. Tia, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead. Okay, we'll move on.
Okay, Mr. Robert Bowers, followed by Kim Stefan.
Robert, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead. Robert, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead and make your comments, please. Thank you. Okay, we'll have to move on.
Okay, moving on. Kim Stefan, followed by James Vale.
Kim, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thank you. This is Kim Steffen. I live in Prospect Hill and I am representing myself. I would like to make more detailed comments in writing, but would like to simply mention tonight two things. One is that the proposed Sunrock facility overburdens our community. There are too many facilities too close together, and common sense tells you that that is simply skirting the rules. These facilities are owned by the same company. They should not be allowed to skirt the rules in that way and not have all of the effects of those emissions and the environmental effects of those plants considered together and considered for the purpose of the permitting question for this facility. Secondly, it appears that Sunrock's application remains incomplete and inadequate. It was appropriate to deny it before, and it remains appropriate to deny it again. And that's what I would ask you to do. That concludes my oral comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to speak is James Vale, followed by Phil Barfield.
James,
Good
your
evening.
line has been. Go
Yes.
ahead, James.
My name is Dr. James Vale. I'm an environmental scientist having long experience in the government and the private sector. I represent myself. I believe that DAQ's evaluation offers little to predict the real impact on me and my neighbors if the Sunrock proposal is given a green light. With all these calculations presented, one could ask what is missing? The answer is a number of significant air issues that DAQ has failed to address. Let me focus on several deficits. The first is noise pollution. The ambient air, while a vehicle for the transport of toxic materials and particulates, so too is its role as a medium to transmit sound. As noted by Sunrock's application to the state, the Wren Road asphalt plant and quarry operation will utilize two massive generators to power operations in the quarry as well as the asphalt processes. The specifications given by the manufacturer indicate some sound levels above 115 decibels associated with the operation of these machines. These levels are similar to amplified music at a rock concert. I live close enough to be subject to an almost constant background din during the warm weather seasons when the facility is proposed to operate. Second is odors. The ambient air is also used as a medium for the transmission of objectionable smells. Besides a ppm sulfur limit, nothing in the DAQ information distribution addresses this important issue. Asphalt facilities are well known to be producers of toxic smells, offensive smells, and they travel via the wind and diffusion, similar to the movement of air toxics and particulates. This situation particularly impacts those living downwind from the point of origin, as can clearly be observed in the summer wind rows for this area. Such is the case for me and my neighbors, where we reside directly in the path of typical breezes from the southwest during much of the warm weather months. Going outdoors during the time of operation of the asphalt plant in the vicinity of Lake Roxborough will take considerable fortitude. Why the issue of objectionable smells in the present case was ignored by DAQ is curious, given that investigations of citizen odor complaints by this agency is not an uncommon activity. Finally, I want to address light pollution. The operation of this facility will necessitate activity during nighttime hours. Thus, much of the southwest sky will be illuminated when it normally would be dark. Due to the presence of small particles suspended in the ambient air and lit by nighttime illumination, the sky will become somewhat opaque. For those of us who are amateur astronomers, a significant portion of the southwest sky will be off limits for stargazing. About 20 years ago, my wife and I constructed a log cabin on the shores of Lake Roxborough. We chose this location precisely because of its tranquil atmosphere and natural beauty. Little did I realize those many years ago, that our peaceful neighborhood was threatened to become an industrial backwater. The full environmental impacts of this proposal has not been adequately captured by DAQ and are in need of being carefully examined. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vale. Next up, we have Phil Barfield, followed by Marcia McNally.
Phil, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Good evening. This is Phil Barfield, and I'm representing myself. The Division of Air Quality mission statement is to protect and improve the outdoor air quality of North Carolina. DAQ works with the state's citizens to protect and improve outdoor, indoor, ambient air quality in North Carolina for the health, benefit, and economic well-being of all. I request DAQ to do just that and deny this air permit application from Carolina Sunrock. I come here tonight very concerned. The applicant is suing 55 to object to a local permit that was issued by our county planner. The lawsuit is seen as intimidation and has had a chilling effect on people wanting to come forward and speak out against the project. As I and others have pointed out in previous submitted comments, the application is incomplete, contains errors, has contradicting information, and omits a critical information for review. Also, it substantially has changed since original submission through revision after revision. DAQ should demand an accurate, complete application from Carolina Sunrock. Carolina Sunrock is planning to come into our county with 3 asphalt plants, 3 truck mix concrete batch plants, and a 630-acre rock quarry site. The planned activities will pollute our air, our land, and our water with particulate matter and toxic chemicals. Some chemicals will be released from smokestacks at toxic levels higher than considered healthy for humans and will require a DAQ permit to do so. Carolina Sunrock is requesting permission to pollute these toxic chemicals at maximum rates that are much higher than they will produce, and I quote, to afford the facility operational flexibility. As an example, Carolina Sunrock estimated they will pollute a total of 238 pounds per year of benzene from the entire facility. However, you are drafting a permit to allow them to pollute 854 pounds per year from just the asphalt drum. Allowing the facility to pollute over 3.5 times more than they estimated does not improve the outdoor quality of North Carolina or protect its citizens. DAQ should not permit toxic chemicals at these high rates and should restrict them as to protect the environment and our citizens. If not denied, DAQ should not take any further action on this application until after the court ruling in the lawsuit. If the applicant loses, our county's new development ordinance will apply and will affect the location and configuration of the projects. If they can meet the new ordinance requirements for this project, then they will need to submit a new air permit application. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Barfield. Next up, we have Marcia McNally, followed by the Reverend Brian Schaffner.
I'm here.
Marcia?
I'm
Yeah,
here.
go
Can
ahead.
you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Marcia McNally. I represent myself and my husband, Randy Hester. We live at 752 Tom Bowes Road, Myrtle Mills, Person County, North Carolina. We live across the lake from Lake Roxborough, from the proposed quarry site. We believe the quarry will negatively affect us and the use of our property. We have placed our farm in the Person County Voluntary Agricultural District. It is a 200-acre working farm in pasture, forest, wildlife habitat, and watershed. Our pasture land, which is being grazed, is within 1/2 mile of the quarry property. The air quality impacts of vegetation, including grazing and forest, have not been determined, can be significant, and may threaten our farm operation. We are submitting written comments that provide more details about why we believe that the quarry permit application should be denied. For now, we would like to close by stating that we are among the dozens of citizens who are being punished by Sunrock by being named in a lawsuit related to Caswell County permits. We will not be harassed and will continue to speak out to ensure long-term farming and environmental protection of this area. It is every person's right and an essential component of North Carolina's environmental review process to do so. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. McNally. Next up is the Reverend Brian Schaffner, followed by Cooper Harris.
I believe Reverend has already raised his hand, so I'm just going to see. Reverend, I believe this is your line. Please.
That is correct.
Okay.
Hello, my
ahead.
name is Reverend Brian Schaffman. I am speaking on behalf of myself, and I am speaking on part of the air permit for the Prospect Hill Quarry and Distribution Center. Quarries are bad for the environment in several ways, but the two that really gets to me is the thought of how the air will be affected, which is free and clean at this moment as God had created it to be. The second is dust pollution. PMC Health Study, as well as numerous studies, have linked elevated particulate levels in the air to increase hospital admissions, which we have very few in proximity. Emergency rooms visits, which distance is the issue in Caswell County. Premature deaths. Premature deaths, or shall I say premeditated deaths, should not be allowed to be built in this county. That's all. And as well as I'd already stated above, average sickness, according to the Community Health Survey issued in 2019, taken in 2017 by the Caswell County Health Department, stated that this is already a sick county. We led in so many areas that it was unbelievable. And just to let the people breathe is what I'm asking for. I'm asking for you to just let them be. Let them enjoy what God created for them. Clean air, clean land, and clean water. Although we're just talking about air right now, let them breathe it freely and while it's clean. God bless and thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Next to speak is Cooper Harris, followed by Ed Doherty. Mr. Harris?
Try. Hello.
Hello, we hear you.
And you can hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Fantastic, thanks. Great, I have three quick comments. The first was stated earlier, but it is interesting and probably notable to remember that the company planned multiple facilities within a very small area only after, to my understanding, initially submitting as one. And so the question becomes, if that combined facility exceeded the requirements and limits mandated by the DAQ, is it really okay to then divide it up in order just to skim below those minimums? Essentially dividing what was initially one planned facility into three. Does that really adhere to the order of what the DAQ is going for? That's comment one. Comment two, with just a little bit more specificity, is the DAQ denied, of course, the air permit in 2019, the application, because the NO2 exceeded the limits. So I would wonder why now the same level of nitrogen is now acceptable when it wasn't before. The third comment, which I'm sure you're well aware of, is just more of a concern than a technical detail. The applicant, as you probably know, is suing 55 neighbors when they exercise their right to kind of object or show concern to this permit. And this was a hearing. It was issued by a county planning director. They encouraged feedback. The lawsuit is seen as intimidation and has, in my opinion, had a chilling effect on people who want to come forward and speak out against the projects. And I know that, you know, silencing people by methods that could be interpreted as threats or intimidation is definitely not something that you all would condone, nor something we would expect from a good neighborly business that we would like in our community. The action requested as it pertains directly to the air quality control is just that air permit itself. We like to limit it, or I guess delay it, until after the court ruling in that aforementioned lawsuit, because depending on the outcome of that case, the county's HIDO, the High Impact Development Ordinance, it will apply and it will affect both location and all kinds of elements of the projects, and therefore, you know, require us to do all of this again. And so to me, it makes sense to delay the DAQ's decision on the air permit until after that court ruling has taken place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Next to speak is Ed Doherty, followed by Susan Stroline.
Ed, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Ed Doherty. I live at 2685 Ridgeville Road in Prospect Hill. Our property is directly across Ridgeville Road from this proposed site. And thanks to some indiscriminate logging and followed up by aerial spraying of defoliants, we have a very clear line of sight to the bulk of this property as well as clear airflow. As with any project, with this great a potential impact on the health and the safety of a community, public input is critically important to the review process, as is demonstrated by tonight's hearing. In this case, that entire process is being threatened and stifled by a current legal action intended to limit public participation and to punish citizens for acting in their own interest and that of their neighbors. I am one of 55 citizens, along with my wife, that are being forced to defend ourselves against such an action. And contrary to what the gentleman from Sunrock had to say, that certainly sounds like a threat to our community. Earlier this year, we filed an appeal of permit with the Caswell County Watershed Review Board, as is our right to petition our county government, following us all established procedures. For that participation, we are now being sued by the applicant. Were it not for this lawsuit, our appeals would have been settled and heard months ago. The cost to defend ourselves and the personal stress that this lawsuit is having on ourselves and our community is certainly of concern, but the bigger issue is the chilling effect that it is having with citizens that otherwise might opine. Citizens are rightfully intimidated and afraid to speak, lest they also end up being sued. This is antithetical to the process and, of course, is being done completely by design. Our opinions matter and they should be heard. The health and safety of our community matters and they should be protected. Our rights as citizens matter and they should be honored and preserved. Others will speak this evening to the technical defects of these permits and to the far-reaching health threats that these projects pose. My ask to the DAQ, the NCDAQ, is to deny these permits based on the facts being presented and the concerns being raised. It does not appear that Sunrock has done much more than change its modeling assumptions, and that a project that this agency denied last year should not be allowed without meaningful change to protect our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Next up is Susan Stroline, followed by Leslie Zimmerman.
Susan, if you dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line.
We'll have to move on to Leslie Zimmerman, followed by Robert Skip Anderson. Leslie Zimmerman, please.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Muting.
Yeah,
There we go.
Leslie, go
Can you-
ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me get back. Okay, this is Leslie Zimmerman. I am representing myself. I have been subpoenaed by this company not once, but twice. Once for all of my communication with you, the Department of Air Quality. The materials for public review do not adequately describe this facility. Information was received after the deadline, making it very hard for me to review and understand the permit request. Additionally, there was only one notice in the newspapers. That is not enough. Given the scale of these facilities, it should have been in the newspaper calendar for the remaining time. This has kept many in the dark. Additionally, no radio announcements. Please inform the people of Caswell and neighboring counties of the intent of this company. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmerman. Next to speak is Robert Skip Anderson, followed by Denise Burnett.
Robert, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line. Thank you. Robert, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you. Okay, we'll have to move on.
Moving on, next on the list is Denise Burnett, followed by Dr. Martinelli. Ms. Burnett?
Oh, there I am.
Denise?
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Denise Burnett, and I represent myself. I live in Prospect Hill, approximately 3 miles from Carolina Sunrock's 2 proposed facilities on Red Road, and less than 10 miles from the proposed facility in Anderson. As a resident whose family will be breathing the air between these facilities for many years to come, it is a great concern to discover that when issuing air quality permits, the combined polluting effects of these multiple facilities may not be considered in determining what is a safe amount of pollutants for us to breathe. I was disturbed to discover that particulate matter 10 can travel up to 30 miles and particulate matter 2.5 can travel over 100 miles. I also discovered that a significant number of other harmful chemicals that will be emitted from these facilities are capable of traveling great distances and polluting the air for far greater of a distance than that found between these 3 facilities. Considering that science clearly and unequivocally tells us that many of these toxic pollutants will travel much greater distances than the miles spanned by these 3 facilities, it seems highly negligent to allow a company to come into a community and propose multiple facilities within such a short distance without considering the combined effect of these 3 facilities on our air quality. How can one in good conscience issue an air quality permit to one company for 3 facilities within a 10-mile radius without considering the combined effect of these facilities? I ask that you deny this permit and that Carolina Sunrock be required to consider the combined effect of pollutants in all permitted facilities when seeking an air quality permit. The people of Caswell County and all of North Carolina deserve that type of integrity and transparency when our health and safety are on the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. Next to speak is Dr. Martinelli, followed by Anita Faust. Dr. Martinelli. We'll have to move on to Anita Faust.
Anita, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you. Anita, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, is this Anita
Hello?
Powell?
This is she. Yes, thank you.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and make your comment, please.
Okay. I'm blind and I'm trying to do it the best I can. Okay, hold on.
Hi, I am Anita Faust. According to the 2019 Caswell County Health Survey, Caswell County, compared to the state average, has higher rates of death due to heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. We are not frightened by doomsday predictions. We are going by scientific facts based upon studies such as the Caswell County Health Survey, the UNC School of Global Public Health's Health Survey, the Carolina Air Monitoring of Air Quality in Our Community, and the American Heart Association. The American Heart Association published a statement concluding that the existing scientific evidence was consistent with a causal relationship between exposure to fine particulate matter and cardiovascular morbidity and mortality, and that fine particulate matter exposure is a modifiable cardiovascular risk factor. Governor Cooper, Secretary Bison, and Director Abrixinskis Human Health and Lives are at stake. Please don't permit them to kill us.
Please deny the air permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. That is all the speakers that have pre-registered. We're going to go back to the start of the list and see if there's anyone who has resolved any technical difficulties. I'm going to go through the people who we called on that did not or were not able to speak the first time. Crystal Cavalier.
Crystal, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line. I can unmute you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Daisha Williams, followed by Sherry Bowers.
Daisha, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you.
Sherry Bowers, or followed by Tia Bowers.
Sherry, if you dialed in by phone, please press *3. I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you. Okay. We have to move on.
Tia Bowers, followed by Robert Bowers.
Tia, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
I don't think Rich would matter, would mind, especially since I'm large.
Tia,
Yes.
your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead. We'll have to move on.
Feels like it to me.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you well. We'll come back to you once more before we conclude. Susan Strawline, followed by Robert Skip Anderson.
Susan, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you. Susan, if you dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Thank you. We'll have to move on.
Okay, Robert Skip Anderson, followed by Dr. Martinelli.
Robert, if you've dialed in by phone, please press *3 so I can identify your line to unmute you. Robert? Okay.
Dr. Martinelli is the final speaker that we haven't heard from who pre-registered.
Okay, Dr. Martinelli, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It is a privilege to be here. Thank you so much for what you're doing. My name is Dr. Martinelli. I reside on Corbett Ridge. I represent my land and myself. I'm calling to encourage our neighbors to stop the life-threatening polluting of our Prospect Hill community by the Raleigh-based Carolina Sunrock business and their air-polluting asphalt plant, quarry, cement plant, and distribution center. Be reminded and never forget, as others have mentioned. Long ago, years back, Sunrock began to make friends with people who live near the proposed site. Be reminded, never forget now. They are suing 55 of the same people. Please be reminded and never forget, Sunblock is already a bad neighbor. It's simple, because they plan to pollute where we live. We must stop Sunrock. We will not submit to being poisoned by the pollutants Carolina Sunblock's business owners plan to bring to our air, our soil, our wells, our home, our families. Who else are the people that own these companies? We should not do business with them. In fact, it's wiser we boycott them rather than they poison us. Support the Prospect Hill community through the website admin@protectcaswell.org, admin@protectcaswell.org. And thanks to the Dan Riverkeepers and the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League, it's not too late. Protect Prospect Hill, stop Carolina Sunrock, build the better, thank us, and no premeditated death. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Martinelli. At this point, we have gone through the list of all the pre-registered speakers, but we do have remaining time. So at this time, if you would like to speak, please put your name on the WebEx chat box, which you can access at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. When we call your name, we will ask you to either raise your hand in WebEx or press *3 on your phone so that we can allow you to be unmuted and provide your comments. Once you have provided comments, please lower your hand or again, press *3. As I said earlier, we're still limiting all comments to 3 minutes, but due to the number of attendees, we believe we can hear enough or hear all the comments that we have. So go ahead, if you have comments, put your name in the WebEx chat box and we will call on you and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, 1 second while I
Rahat, can you handle the...
Yes. Richard Line, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you to all the speakers. I'd just like to comment that...
Sir, can you... oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You're speaking for yourself. You're speaking
Yes,
for
I'm speaking for myself.
Okay.
I've enjoyed and appreciated all the comments. I think DEQ should take it upon themselves to collect the phone numbers of people who have registered to speak but are not able to be communicated with, so that the EQ could call them ask them for a number to call in case there's a problem, because you could establish the communication rather than putting the onus on people who want to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Robert Skip Anderson, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Well, just in time. My wife and I are members of Protect Caswell. We are a group of citizens and property owners and farmers in Caswell and Person counties who see a company with plans to dig and blast a stone quarry, manufacture both asphalt and concrete, moving into our community before qualifying for proper permits. Lake Roxborough is a secondary reservoir used by the city of Roxborough. We have a mining company who used fracking techniques in addition to drilling and blasting so near an important water source as the lake and tributaries such as South Hyco Creek is a serious cause for concern. Manufacture of asphalt is inherently a poisonous process. That black, smelly gunk is just that, the final remnants of the petroleum refinery process that not only contains many known carcinogens and toxins, but also contains several hundred unknown chemicals. This toxic mix has many local residents fearing for the safety of their own wells and lungs. We expect that Roxborough should be concerned for their water source for the same reasons. Flint, Michigan wasn't concerned until it was too late. Many local farmers who are very concerned about air quality, especially those who grow certified organic products. One of the most economically important of these is organic tobacco. Organic tobacco is tested multiple times during the growing season, and if watered or irrigated, pumps water from farm ponds, making this crop subject to both air and water pollution. As has been said before, we will not be harassed. We will continue to speak out to ensure long-term environmental protection of this area. It is every person's right and an essential component of North Carolina's environmental review process to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Rahat, do we have any others wishing to speak?
Just give me one moment. Daphne, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead. Daphne, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead. Okay, maybe she's having some audio issues. We'll come back to her in a minute. Lyndon, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead and make your comments, please.
For more than a year, I've followed the actions of AG, AERP of the world and in Robinson County, and from what I've learned, that everywhere they do business, communities are never given straight information about the company. Although AERP spent years taking pellets in Utah for testing, they claim to have no air emissions data, which is why the plant was using FIFA data at startup. If permitted, will DHQ please require increased testing so that this plant does not release uncontrolled pollution into the air before regulators have a handle on the level of harmful emissions created through their new process? AERP stated in their June 1st, 2020 capital that they are currently making blackwood pellets at the Halifax site without a permit. This manufacturing process creates discharge.
Okay, Lyndon Harris, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead. So we'll have to,
Mr. Harris faded away. He was speaking.
yeah, maybe some audio issues. That's all the speakers that I have. I'll try Daphne again, see if she's able to reconnect. Daphne, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead. Okay.
Okay. We have heard from all of the present registered or pre-registered speakers, as well as anyone else present at this public hearing who wished to speak and could. However, if you did not speak tonight due to technical difficulties or whatever, but still want to provide comments, you still have opportunity for that. There are several other ways to provide comments until the end of the comment period, which is not until Thursday, September 23rd at 5 p.m. And here they are. You can call 919-707-8726 and leave a voicemail message with your first and last name, who you are representing, and your comment related to Carolina Sunrock, Prospect Hill Quarry, and Distribution Center. You can also provide written comments until the comment period ends. You can email those to daq.publiccomments@ncdenr.gov with Carolina Sunrock Prospect Hill Quarry and Distribution Center in the subject line, or you can use U.S. Postal Mail to submit written comments to the address listed in the public notice. Based on the information received during tonight's hearings and comments received throughout the comment period, I will make a recommendation to the Director of the Division of Air Quality for his consideration in making a final decision on whether to issue the air quality permit to Carolina Sunrock, LLC, Prospect Hill Quarry, and Distribution Center. Thank you for your participation, attendance, and interest in the air quality permitting process. The public hearing is now adjourned.